Welcome back to following No and on a Stormlight podcast. Gentlemen, it is December 5th when this episode releases, which means it may not be December 5th on your two's calendar at the moment, but when this episode releases, December 5th, which means we are officially less than a year from Stormlight 5 releasing. And in prep for that, at the end of each episode moving forward, we are going to do a quick Stormlight prep in the form of a game between you two. We're going to keep score. I will give you more details at the end of the episode. Neither Eliot or Paul knew that was coming. So they have no idea. Paul, how are you?
Happy Thanksgiving, except late. I actually didn't realize how far out we've now gotten to recording our episodes, so I apologize for everyone that we didn't shout that out yet. But I'm excited for Christmas, just around the corner, just a couple weeks away. I'm excited. We are in Hero of Ages now. Absolutely thrilled. This is like one of those books that gets everyone talking, Like, this has been a good series so far. I feel confident that this book is what sends it from a good series to a great series. So I'm excited, I'm thrilled, and looking forward to the Christmas season. Absolutely. Side note, sorry, I'm really talking a lot in this intro. But yeah, I did not know about this whole Stormlight prep. Still don't know exactly what we're going to be doing. But I haven't historically done great on any kind of trivia thing we've done, but I'm really going to be putting my best foot forward because I want to win. I want to win something, and I'm ready to get prepped for book 5. My New Year's resolution to myself is that that's when I'm going to start on January 1st. I'm going to start rereading Stormlight Archive, so that I'm really fresh for once book 5 comes out. So yeah, looking forward to it. Really went off with a lot of info there, but yeah.
Eliot, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm super pumped for Stormlight 5. Inside a year for that's pretty crazy to think. When we started this podcast, we were 4 years out from that, 4.5 years
Yep.
out from that. So to be inside a year on the closing of Stormlight Archive is pretty crazy. It's gonna be honest before we know it, but we have a lot of ground to cover between now and then, starting with the Hero of Ages, of course. I'm with Paul. I've heard a lot of people reference this book. I've heard a lot of people mention it, say, "Oh, I wish I could talk about this, but oh yeah, that's in Hero of Ages." And I've seen a lot of spoiler bars in our Discord with the Hero of Ages as the tag along with them. So I'm quite intrigued to read this book, and we get quite the banger of an intro as well.
Sanderson pulls no punches. We'll throw it back to Eliot here in a second for a brief summary. But let's start to Paul first before the intro. Paul, we have a new patron.
We do. I was gonna wait till after the intro, but it's super exciting. This can't wait. Trevor's right. We have a new surgeon in the midst. By the way, I'm still a little bit hurt with how many titles I got wrong whenever we started this a long time ago. Like, I was always saying Ardent when they were a surgeon, or vice versa, or just always getting it off. So I'm trying to be really meticulous with it now. But a huge thank you to Russell. I'm doing my best to try and get these to look clear on camera, but
That one looks good.
I'm sure y'all are aware it's never been the best quality. But Russell, our newest surgeon, and we really appreciate it. And man, I can't help. You just came at such a great time, I think, for Hero of Ages. I think this is going to be such a fun book to go through. So, thank you so much for your support. And yeah, absolutely. Could not even wait until the intro for that one. So,
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Russell. And thank you, each of you, for listening. I feel like we haven't thanked our listeners in a while. I appreciate each of you tuning in to hear our thoughts on the Cosmere. Let's roll intro. and then we'll get a brief summary of the prologue through chapter 7 of The Hero of Ages. Ready when you are, Eliot?
Okie doke. First 7 chapters of The Hero of Ages sees quite a bit happen. Prologue right away starts giving us some hints and clues about things. We're in Marsh's perspective, and we learn a little bit about what he's going through as an inquisitor, with a couple of name drops that we'll talk about here in a second. Once we get over to our main heroes, I would say Vin and Elend show up in some random village south. I want to say it's like southern dominance or something like that.
Yep.
They swing in just in time to save the day from an invading army of koloss, and epic battle ensues there with some interesting perspectives from some of the villagers and leaders there. We see a lot of Elend in a very confident leadership role. We get a couple point of views from Tensoon, the Kandra, so some very interesting glimpses into his predicament and the Kandra culture, which I'm excited to talk about. Let's see, we get a brief stint of time in Sazed's head in chapter 4. He's chatting with Breeze. They've gone to visit Lekal. I don't even know how to say that name.
Is it Lee Cow?
Lekal?
In the audiobook, it's
I believe
Lee
it's
Cal.
I believe it's Lee Cow.
Okay. Gone to visit the house Lekal to try and get them to sign a treaty, sounds like, and Sazed is still trying to deal with the loss of Tindwyl and some of the challenges to his faith. And let's see, Vin and Elend discover a cavern that's stocked with supplies and map and some hints about Allomantic metals, and they're on the hunt for more. And I think that pretty much covers it.
Sounds good. Before we even start with before we even start with the prologue, I want to cover just the beginning pages of the book. We get a map. Is this the first map we get? Or is there another?
So we've had maps before, but it was always like the area as a whole, like the dominances.
Uh-huh.
And then I think we've had a map of Luthadel before. What caught my eye as I flipped open this book, I'm only 5 pages in, not even to actual page 1 yet. There's not a map of Luthadel. Instead, there's 2 other cities, which we don't really know anything about yet. And so that right there, I took as a rather positive sign on one of the things we've talked about before, which was I want to get out of Luthadel and see the rest of this place. Well,
Yeah.
there we go. Right in the beginning of the book, there are maps of 2 cities that we haven't been to. So I'd say that's promising.
There's one Orto,
Yes. And Fadrek City.
which is where Set's from. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. At the end of last book, Eliot, you were excited to see Marsh again, but also very concerned about the state of which Marsh was in. Right off the bat, first paragraph, we get so many name drop secrets revealed in the prologue of this book. Do either one of you want to take this prologue?
Sure. Marsh. But Marsh has been a really interesting character. And as we just talked in our wrap up, I was a little surprised to not see a lot of him in the last book. And for him to apparently completely switch sides, well, we get our explanation for that here, like you said, right off the bat. Marsh is straight up being mind controlled. He
Yep.
is not in control of his body. And in fact, he is in the prologue here, like actively trying to kill himself.
Yeah.
He's trying to take what looks like the only way of escape he can see, which is I need to stop whatever it is from controlling me by killing myself, but he can't even do that. The thing that has control of him, which I don't know if I came to this conclusion in the prologue or later through some of the bits we got in these chapters, but it seems to very clearly be Ruin,
Yep.
Ruin itself, directly controlling Marsh's every action, like every muscle movement. So, yeah, yikes.
So I want to talk about this a little bit. So I didn't hop in for the prologue, but I'm glad we're talking about Marsh first. This is what I wanted to talk about first. Chapter 6, I believe chapter 6 is a very short Marsh POV chapter. Like really short chapter. And the audiobook is literally like 5 minutes exactly. Like it's so quick. And he talks about this. He talks about how he doesn't have control over himself. Like he says the maximum that he's been able to do is like maybe move a finger or maybe stop walking. But then like if he does do that, then it's like if we're assuming it's Ruin, then it's like he has Ruin's full attention and then is pushed right back into it. Like he
Right.
just gets a brief moment maybe where he's not being paid full attention to, which is crazy and sad. You know, it's sad to see because we're seeing in Marsh's mind, which in his mind, like there's a lot of things which are very inquisitor. Like he sees these spikes as beautiful, right? It talks a little bit about these spikes that they have and how they have more spikes now than before. Even one's going straight through the heart, which is totally crazy, you know. And he talks about how they're beautiful, which makes you think that's not actually Marsh, right? That is Inquisitor, right?
Right.
But there is still like some Marsh in there, you know, which I feel like is a little hopeful, but obviously it's completely like tragic. It's tragic to see Marsh's point of view.
Eliot, at the end of book 1, you were ready to herald Marsh as top 5 character, main good guy. Like you were really behind Marsh. Does this reveal that he's enslaved change your feelings at all? From the previous book?
I liked Marsh a lot in the first book. In the kind of brief bits that we saw from him, he seemed to be a voice of reason, someone who is, you know, giving it to you straight, not pulling any punches, but at the same time watching out for other people. He made a huge sacrifice in being the one to become an inquisitor and infiltrate the Lord Ruler's house and all that. Save the day. I mean, the heroes would not have won without Marsh in book 1. Book 2, yeah, I was very quickly to toss him out and say, okay, he switched sides, done with that. Does this change things? I mean, yeah, I think it's gotta, right? If the real Marsh is still in there and there was no turn, there was no betrayal, and that it's just mind control, like, yeah, I think that brings him right back into the picture of a character I can get behind. Now, there's an interesting question though on this, which is when did the mind control happen?
Right.
And I would specifically frame that question in context of the events at the very end of the second book, with Vin freeing what I think we can safely assume is Ruin at this point from the Well of Ascension. Did Ruin have mind control over Marsh before that, or was that the moment where Ruin came back into its powers and is able to fully mind control? And like before that, we know Marsh was hearing a voice in his head before that, but was like it wasn't full on mind control and it was just that voice. It was just the influence of Ruin. And like maybe Zane is in the same conversation here. Maybe Zane is not getting mind control, he's just getting influenced by the voice. In
Right.
that case, is there still some culpability on Marsh? Perhaps yes. But yeah, I think it changes it absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have to keep reading to figure out the specifics on that, because in last book it seemed pretty clear that Zane had free will. He just had a kill him voice in his ear.
Right.
Whereas we're
Right.
led to believe here, from the point of view of Marsh, that it is complete mind control and even mind altering. Like, he can feel himself reveling in this gross act of hemalurgy at the beginning of the book, and then when it's back to Marsh, he is wondering why he was enjoying that. Like, so there's a strange like dual mind thing going on. Do you want to talk about hemalurgy, since now it's been named officially?
So I'll talk about this a little bit. So Hemalurgy, easily like the weirdest, I guess, if we want to call it a magic system
Right.
that we've had. Definitely the most grotesque and the weirdest. We don't fully understand how it works. I don't think, like, how it bestows power, like why the Inquisitors are strong. But we know a couple things, and I think we see this in chapter 6. We learn that, I don't know if this is the first place that we learn it or if this is additional, but it states that there's the spikes in Inquisitors' eyes are steel.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's probably why they're called Steel Inquisitors typically. That, and then there, you may have to correct me if I'm wrong, but there are pewter spikes in the body, I believe. I think there's one, like, which may be one of their new ones that goes through the heart.
I believe the one through the heart is brass.
Okay. There's a brass spike through the heart. I think maybe pewter one's kind of in the side, like. Also, I believe that Marsh mentions he may have more than the rest.
Right.
Marsh mentions some in his ribs, not just like in the back, right? We know that there's like a point in the back. There's one that goes straight through the chest, and there's kind of a point in the back that if you separate those in the back, that's like an Inquisitor's weakness. But man, another thing that we see in here is he mentions that, like, we get a mention that a spike is like made. I don't know if it's made from a life, but it's at least made in some capacity, like from killing, which is really grotesque. Like, if sticking a spike through your body isn't grotesque enough, like the spike being made in some way, shape, or form from killing people as well, like, it just
Right.
makes it even more crazy. It's definitely the most morbid magic system I've ever heard of. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. My understanding is, I don't know if hemalurgy can really be separate from, like, ruin or this whole mind control thing, right? Like, we saw that, for example, Zane had, it looked like he had a spike.
Right.
And he had this voice in his head. Maybe it's all just completely tied to ruin. You're like in his network, you know? Or I don't know if it's like if there's an innocent side that it's like, yeah, you can have a casual spike in your eye and it's just to gain steel powers, you know? Not connecting you to ruin or something. I don't know the answer to that, and that's a question that I would have. But y'all may have way more to say about hemalurgy. Those were my just off the cuff thoughts.
So, my quick question, which I don't know if it's a quick one, but what are the specifics of hemalurgy? If you were to ask me, like, the specifics on it, I would guess if you spike yourself with a metal, you get the power of a Mistborn on that metal. But that doesn't seem to be the case, because they're missing several, but seem to have full powers of Mistborn. So I'm a little confused. Does it have to do with, and we learned in the prologue that in order to get a spike, you have to like spike it through someone. So I'm wondering if you get the powers of whoever you spiked, if they were like a misting and were a seeker or something, or a smoker, and if you spike them, then you get their powers. But I'm not convinced on that one either, because there's not that many. Maybe there are that many Mistborn around, or mistings around, I should say.
And Marsh makes a weird comment in context with that. So in the prologue, it specifically mentioned that the person being sacrificed is a terraceman.
Right.
And then later in the Marsh chapter 6, I think it is, he mentions again them needing to hunt down or find more terracemen. And I kind of jumped to the conclusion that that was related to the spiking that they wanted to do. He's thinking about like the different spikes that he has in his ribs and things like that as he talks about, oh yeah, we got to hunt down the rest of the terracemen. I almost was ready to jump to the conclusion that not only do you have to spike it through a person into the Inquisitor that you're adding the power to, but that it might have to be a terraceman. Or maybe in a similar vein have to be a ferrochemist.
Okay.
Maybe
Maybe.
that's the wrong direction to go with. I don't think we have any clues that way. But yeah, I was wondering if it was even more specific than what you were thinking.
Could also reframe the Lord Ruler's Terraceman breeding program that we knew was happening over 1,000
Oh,
years.
oh,
If it has to be a
yeah,
Terraceman, I wonder if that has something to do with it. Like everybody just assumed he was trying to breed out ferrochemy, but
right,
maybe he was trying to like harvest, for lack of a better term.
yeah, absolutely. And it clearly has to be something that's. I think it's got to be something that's difficult to do.
Right.
Otherwise, there'd be way more Inquisitors.
Right.
If this was something you could just grab a random person, even like a misting, I feel like there's enough mistings out there that the Lord Ruler would have had an army of these guys. He only had like 20-ish.
Right.
And we're 2 years, 2 years out from the slaying of the Lord Ruler.
Correct.
Or yeah. And it doesn't seem like the Inquisitors themselves, under the influence of Ruin, have gone off and created their own army of Inquisitors. Maybe they have. Maybe that's the Sandor Lance of this book, as we realize there's an army of 100,000 Inquisitors. Who knows?
That's a
But
lot of Inquisitors.
I'm willing. Yeah, that would be kind of ridiculous. The I'm willing to guess at this point that it's something that happened. You have to have very specific circumstances. You have to have something very specific, a specific person. It's not something you can just grab a random guy off the street in order to power up your body.
Right. Anything else for Marsh?
There's one comment. Where is it in my notes? In the prologue, Marsh makes a reference, and he's kind of under the influence of Ruin at this point, about there used to be a force that lay over the land like a shield. That's a quote. That's what the book says.
Okay.
Force that lay over the land like a shield. I read that and immediately thought like a preserving force, like a preservation, and starting to hunt more and more for our words that we have. Ruin, preservation.
Yeah, I did notice that we're specifically using ruin as a term and as a name now, but we're not using preservation. Where's preservation?
Yeah. Questions.
So, kind of related to this, jumping over to Vin and Elend, they fight an Inquisitor who has control of a koloss army. And we can talk more about that in a second, but the Inquisitor that they find, two weird things about the Inquisitor. One, right before the Inquisitor dies, Vin says he moved really fast, way faster than he should have. Second one, he tries to kill Elend with one of his spikes. He either has an extra spike or does he pull one out from himself? I don't remember which one it is. But he tries to kill Elend with a spike, and then they kind of just dismiss it as, well, maybe he couldn't reach a sword. Like, that was kind of strange. I've never seen one do that before, but maybe he was just improvising. What did you think of both of those, Eliot?
The the move fast. Ellen even asks Vin, was it derailment? I think.
Yeah.
And I think Vin says, no, it's not even derailment. He's moving even faster than that. And so now it's a question of, well, apparently our Inquisitors have leveled up. Marsh talks about this in his chapter of they're getting access to powers that the Lord Ruler withheld because he didn't want the Inquisitors to get too powerful. And now that it's Ruin at the reins, they're getting even more powerful. So our Inquisitors just leveled up, which I guess is appropriate for our book 3. We need bigger, badder villains. So here they come in superpowered Inquisitors. The kill him with the spike thing. Yeah, weird. Not sure what that's about. Not sure if that's some kind of attempt at hemalurgy. Is it, hey, I've got the spike. I can do magic on you if I can get it in you. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know.
I don't know either. It's kind of a toss-up. Vin and Elend find a cache after they have... It's actually kind of interesting. The first chapter of this book, you think, we're going to get a Vin point of view, maybe an Elend, maybe... No, we get a brand new character. I don't even remember his name. Fatrin. Brand new character Fatrin is our point of view character. And it takes half a chapter until Elend even shows up. So you're trying to figure out what have I just been dropped into? It almost feels like an interlude. And then Elend shows up and it soothes the whole city, says, come fight with me, and then they go attack a koloss camp. I did remember that Vin and Elend are fighting koloss for some reason at the beginning of this book, but I had no remembrance of why. So getting dropped into Fatrin's point of view, I was just as discombobulated as anyone else who picks this up for the first time. I was trying to figure out what was going on.
And even 7 chapters in, by the end of our reading here, I'm still fairly confused. At the end of last book, I thought we figured out how to beat koloss. Why are there koloss out there that have not been tamed? Is it just that there's way more koloss than I'm thinking? When last book we had an army of koloss attack the city and Vin takes control of them all in one battle, I'm thinking, oh, okay, great, that was all the koloss handled, good to go. Apparently not. Vin and Elend are talking about armies and armies of koloss, and the koloss just keep coming. They're under the strong control of the Inquisitors, they think. So I was not expecting koloss to be our enemies in this book.
So they say 10,000, don't they? Isn't that the number that's thrown out? Is 10,000 koloss, and then it's already 3 to 4 men. It's to show they're incredibly outnumbered. It's because they don't even have that many men, and then you need multiple men to fight a koloss, right? But then obviously the tables are turned with Elend and Vin taking control of them. But I don't know, 10,000, it does. They took control of a lot, but I can still believe that they aren't completely, squelched, if that's the word, squashed, something like that, aren't completely taken care of.
Can I tell you guys what this battle scene made me think of? So with Vin and Elend running around fighting things, and then having to stop and focus some soothing on a koloss in order to take control of it. It made me immediately think of Age of Empires 2, or any Age of Empires for that matter, with your monks running around the battle, trying to convert people.
Yeah.
Doing the whole whoa, low, low, or whatever they say, and taking control of the enemy. Oh, okay, now you've got that one, and then that one is fighting for you now. It changes colors from red to blue, and now you can use it to go fight those. I could not get that out of my head for the rest of the battle.
Just really strong monks,
Yeah.
And when the enemy monk is, when you hear that noise and the enemy monk is taking your guy, you got to run him away real quick. And yes,
that's what these battles have turned into now.
So I will say this changed how I think about our Allomancers. Not an official list, but I've kind of had the list of oh yeah, some of these Allomancers, if you were misting, it would feel more useful to be some mistings than others. 10 eyes have their value, right? But in a fight, you want thugs and coin shots and stuff like that. But this went way up in my list for soothing and soothers, and especially that we learned that apparently a group of soothers could take control of a Kandra or a koloss. I'm like, that's really, really impactful and really strong. So I was like, dang it, if you're a soother, like, you got a huge buff to your arsenal, like that's pretty incredible.
What about the new metal?
It was
New
neat to
metal?
get confirmation. Sorry. There's two, I guess, new metals in my head. The like new one is this like what was it? Electrum,
Electrum, yep.
and it's the counter play. Like it's how you even the playing field against ATM, right? Like you're burning Electrum, and then ATM can't see what you're gonna do. So
Right.
it's kind of like leveling the playing field without having ATM yourself. It's being immune to ATM. It's like burning copper, I guess, is a comparison. This was nice. I kept thinking about like plot holes to this, not plot holes, but like ways that it gets kind of difficult. I was thinking like, okay, so if you're fighting an Inquisitor or any Mistborn type Allomantic power being, right? Do you have to be burning Electrum like the entire time just in case they have ATM? Because you can't necessarily visually tell that anyone is burning ATM, right? You would just know because they know exactly where you're going to move. So I'm like, I feel like you would have to always be burning Electrum. Sorry, I keep forgetting what it's called. Is that the right word?
Yep, Electrum.
For whatever reason, it doesn't sound right now. But you have to like always be burning Electrum, or you're just running the risk that if they have ATM, then they're just gonna wipe me out right now. So I feel like it's kind of an awkward. It's like your insurance policy. Electrum's like your insurance that you always need to have on you, I guess. So I have mixed feelings about this medal.
I was trying to figure out the details of it in classic Eliot fashion, I guess. I'm trying to. I guess what it does is it lets you see your potential future actions. Is that
I
how it
guess,
goes?
yeah, technically, yeah.
And so the reason that defeats ATM is if you know what you're gonna do, you can change it, or maybe it just infinitely increases the options of what you could do, and ATM can't handle it. I wasn't sure exactly how it countered ATM, but I think I follow.
Also, maybe this is moving on too much, but I'm wondering why this is. So this is not the counterpart to ATM though. But like in battle it is like in function. But we learned that the 11th medal, which we knew about from book 1, um, is actually like the counterpart to ATM. Like
Right.
I guess like on a periodic table standpoint, or however
The
you want to
alloy.
look at that. Yes, the alloy. That's the word. Um, which I thought was interesting. It seems very. That one seems very much like a like an alloy to gold, which we already have one, don't we? Or is that still? It's gold and something.
I don't know if we do have the alloy to gold
Okay.
yet. They
I
know
think
My
they
that
head is
said
like,
it.
why isn't?
I think they said it in this chapter, chapter 3, because I wrote it down in my notes that Electrum is the alloy of gold, which
Okay.
okay.
I think makes sense if you think about it in the right way, because you have ATM, which lets you see others' futures. You have Mal ATM, or the 11th metal, which lets you see others' pasts.
Right.
Then you
Right.
have gold, which lets you see your past. And then the alloy of gold, Electrum, lets you see your future.
Okay. When you say it like that makes perfect sense. Absolutely. I definitely get that now. On like a reading through this, like face value kind of thing, I'm like, no, it makes way more sense for the one that's good at fighting against ATM to be the counter to ATM, and vice
Yep.
versa with gold and Mal ATM.
And I think I can't flip. I don't have my my well of ascension with me, or I would flip to the back of the book to see the little diagram. Can't do it in this book because there might be spoilers back there. The the circle diagram with the the different metals in it, or the not quite a circle.
Mhm.
I think we've almost filled it all in now, because what's not shown in a lot of those is aluminum and our already known alloy of that duralumin. So we've got ATM in its alloy, gold in its alloy, aluminum in its alloy. We're already well past the original like 8 allomantic metals.
Right.
We only need one more set to get all the way around in that circle,
16.
that diagram we were looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's 4 in each quadrant. So, right?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
so, yeah.
So we're at 14.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We're at 14.
And also, just to
So
be clear, just so I remember, the only time we've seen aluminum was it in the first book when they have Van burn a metal and she learns it wipes out all of her metal reserves, right? That
Yep.
was
Right.
aluminum, right?
We haven't
Okay.
seen it. We haven't seen it since. But an
Yeah.
Inquisitor did
Yeah.
have and knew how to use aluminum.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's all. That's all. I was just making sure I remembered that correctly.
Also, I just Googled it. Electrum is a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver. I didn't know that.
Really. The more you
I
know.
love that.
What about ATM, Trevor?
I don't think ATM is going to be on the periodic table.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. The first thing I get is a Mistborn wiki page.
I see.
I love that he does that though. There's been a bunch of that in Mistborn where I read it and it's like, oh, surely he made that word up. Nope, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Duralumin, electrum. Yeah, we're actually learning about metals and stuff just by reading Mistborn.
Mm-hmm. They find the cache in Vatitan, I think is the small town that we're in. I don't think it matters. The small town in the south is where the last metal plaque led them. They find this cache. It's apparently the second to last one, and the last one is going to be in Thadrix City, I believe is what it's called, which is Set's old homeland. So it would imply that that's where we're headed in the near future. Anything else for Vin and Elend, gentlemen?
One thing, well, this is kind of a segue into other things. Oh yeah, real quick before we do segue. In the cavern,
Uh-huh.
so they found a cavern. It's stocked with resources. It's a lot like the cavern they found in Luthadel that had the Well of Ascension. I think they mentioned here they found another cavern in Luthadel that was stocked with supplies, and that started them on like a scavenger hunt where they're chasing all these caverns down. Like you just said, they've got one more. In the cavern, they find an inscription in steel. They think left by the Lord Ruler that it explains about a metal. And then Vin finds a very small, like additional inscription on the steel.
Yeah.
And I don't have the full thing in front of me. I could find the page. But the takeaway was the inscription says, "Be careful what you say." We already know that Ruin, we're assuming, can read what you write, can change what you write if you don't put it in steel. But this hint seems to imply that Ruin can hear you when you
Yeah.
talk. And the inscription it says something like only your thoughts are safe. And so Vin kind of walks away with a little bit of new information there of, man, somehow Ruin can spy on you. And that's a new bit of information that's a little bit creepy.
But
Is anything our heroes have said, is that now potentially information that Ruin has?
also kind of related to that, in the Marsh chapter, Marsh makes the conclusion that he's not omnipotent. No, not omnipresent. He is not everywhere at once. So you can, like, we're in Marsh's head for these chapters, and it's proved to us there that that Ruin cannot read Marsh's thoughts. He only changes his attention to Marsh when he's out of line. So, yes, he can. He Ruin might be hearing you if he's paying attention, but he might not. right? Like he's not everywhere at once.
And I definitely have questions on that, like how.
Right.
And there's details perhaps we could get into in maybe our Stormlight spoiler section at the end, but I would guess that Ruin has to have some kind of method of hearing that information. I'd be pretty shocked if just Ruin can hear every single word said on the entire planet.
Right.
That seems a bit powerful even for a shard. The the question I might have is like how, and I'm thinking of like the mist.
Mm-hmm.
Is the mist tied to Ruin, and maybe even tied in such a way that it is a literal extension of Ruin, and if there's mist nearby even a little bit, they could hear you or something like that.
Which would, I mean, we've been told so many times that mist can't go inside, and then sometimes it does go inside, and that's really weird. So maybe that would feed into it. Is maybe even the Lord Ruler didn't know. Maybe if you're inside, it can't hear you, or Ruin can't hear you, but if you're outside, he can. Something like that.
Yeah.
We got to catch up with Tensoon. We haven't seen Tensoon since Zane died. And apparently he has been spending his time as a lump of muscle and mucus in a bucket.
Yeah, I mean I know we all tend to tend to spend our days like this, but it's a bit sad to see Tensoon here without a job, just kind of chilling back at home. A little bit sad.
Really interesting glimpses into Kandra world. Poor Tensoon.
Yeah.
I think I feel for him just because at the end of the day he helped Vin, right? So when he returns back, instead of chilling at home, he's actually in prison. Very nasty, like hole in the ground. He's a puddle in a pothole, Tensoon. But then you start to pick up details about the Kandra and some interesting things, and then later on in the chapter 7, they get in even more into like the politics of the Kandra world, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we pick him up in chapter 2, they're trying to execute him, right?
They dumped some
He
acid
manages.
on him in like what, chapter 4 or something. And then
Yeah,
so they're trying to execute him, but the law says they have to give him a body first so that if he wants to appeal for trial or whatever, he has the opportunity to do so. So they give him a body, but then before any other Kandra could feasibly take the body, they just start dumping acid on him to kill him. But because he's so experienced at taking different forms and bodies, he does it quickly, does it faster than they're expecting him to, and then appeals for trial, and so they have to give it to him, which is where we leave him. I think they're leading him to like the courtroom at the end of chapter 7 or 6 or whatever. And that's where we leave him.
So that we learn a lot about the Kandra and everything here. There's mention of the generations, right? We learn Tensoon is a member of the 3rd generation.
Right.
And we could just assume that obviously that's like literal generations from, I guess, the original Kandra who were created. But I'm a bit curious on what Eliot thinks on this. So not just the generations. Like that's not my question. My thing that I'm curious to know what you think about is they're kind of mad at Tensoon for calling for a trial. They're like, you had the easy way out. We could kill you now, and that's the best. Like that's a blessing that we're offering to you.
Right.
You broke the contract, like you've betrayed us, and we're offering to just end your life right here, right now. And he is calling for a trial. Do you think there's like hope in this trial at all? Is it just he wants to speak his mind and he doesn't care if he's punished for it? How do you even punish a Kandra worse than killing it? I don't really know. I mean, I'm sure there's stuff. I know Brandon's way more clever than I am. But what's your thought on this scenario?
I'm actually really interested when we get to that scene. I'm assuming we're going to get it because Hensoon, he thinks to himself, I can convince them. I broke the rules. I knowingly broke the rules. I went back to my people. Like, this is the punishment that I deserve based on the laws and customs of these people. But he has hope of changing those laws, of convincing the Kandra that Vin was worth helping, that something's different, and that maybe Vin, if they help Vin, they could get out of the not so great situation they're in, where they're just in eternal servitude to powerful humans. And so, does he have a chance? Yeah, I think absolutely. Seems like Tensoon's a very experienced, very knowledgeable Kandra. He'll know their law very well. They're all experts in contracts, apparently. And so, can he talk his way out of it? Maybe. Maybe get himself some parole. Get them to give him a chance. Give me a year. Give me a year to prove to you that Vin is worth helping. So maybe they'll release him, and hey, maybe Vin gets her dog sidekick back.
At some point, Vin would have to start explaining why every year she has a different dog, though. Like,
Yeah.
someone's gonna start asking some questions of why don't you keep the same dog around, Vin? Eliot, what's
The
going on with Sazed?
super quick before we move over to Sazed, which I really do want to talk about Sazed. He's the number one thing I'm looking forward to in this book at this point. Last word on Kandra, though. Fascinating kind of dialogue about them and some of the politics between their generations and some of just the irony about them in general.
Mm,
Tensoon spent some time kind of examining how the Kandra, at least in their own city, take these true bodies, and it's a fascinating description of the one that comes to take him has a skeleton of quartz, pure quartz,
yep.
and then creates himself a completely translucent body so that he can show off his quartz skeleton that he's got. And the other Kandra they pass have other materials or metals or stone and stuff like that. They don't just take on skeletons, they create themselves. You can go to the True Body boutique and buy yourself a new skeleton made out of whatever the latest trend is,
Yep.
and that's like their fashion. But just the irony in that of the Kandra hate the humans so much, and yet so much of what they are and do is all in mimicry of the humans.
Yep.
They could take other forms. They could take other shapes. They could be other things. But they, even when they have a choice, choose to mirror humans, which is fascinating.
I think that specifically True Bodies would be really cool to see visually in an adaptation
Oh
or
yeah.
even
Oh
art.
yeah.
I think you could do some really cool things with that.
It also makes me jump to weird questions like ferrochemy. What if you make yourself a metal but true body made out of metal mines?
Hmm.
Like what happens then?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Or yeah, we just learned or got a name of hemalurgy. What happens when you try to hemalurge Kandra? I don't know nearly enough about hemalurgy to even start guessing about how that would work or what that would do. But yeah, question.
I I think it's pretty obvious that we're gonna learn more about hemalurgy and Kandra as this book goes on. So maybe we can
Hope
answer
so.
that question by the end of the book.
I hope so. But Sazed, where you were headed with Sazed. Yeah, definitely want to talk briefly. We get one chapter, I think it's just one in Sazed's perspective, and he has not progressed very far from where we left him.
Right.
Been a year, at least a year. I was actually confused at one point, and in like the Sazed chapter, they talk about 2 years ago, such and such, which I
So
was trying to figure out are they talking about like events from the first book or
So timeline for you. The Final Empire started 3 years ago, and it takes an entire year to kill the Lord Ruler. Killing the Lord
Right.
Ruler was 2 years ago from now. Right?
Okay.
And so then there was a year
Yes.
gap between the Final Empire and the Well of Ascension, and then a year gap from the Well of Ascension to the Hero of Ages.
Got it. Okay. So it's been a year since Sazed has lost Tindwyl and had massive shaking of his faith, and he's still in that place.
Yep.
He's still struggling with that. He still seems very bitter about religion in general, which is the opposite of the Sazed that we're used to. We're used to Sazed who loves a discussion about any religion or faith whatsoever, and here he is like just hating every aspect of these religions and almost with just like a scowl on his face, I imagine, going through his religions one by one and examining them and tossing out any of the ones that he finds any inconsistencies or illogical jumps in, which I think the implication in the chapter was that's all of them so far.
Right.
He spent a year going through them all, and every single one he's found some kind of inconsistency or something he doesn't like about it. And so he says, "Oh, well, obviously that can't be true," so he throws it out. Now, I couldn't tell whether he's throwing them out, basically claiming or thinking, "Oh, that's been changed by Ruin," or if he's just bitter about religion and he's trying to find one that he can't disprove so that he can latch onto that one. But every single one he gets to, he finds something that he doesn't like about it, and so it goes. So, but either way, interesting position that says it's in.
Yeah. I am echoing you as well. I am really looking forward to Sazed in this book. I have vague memories, but I really am not sure how he gets there and why. So, looking forward to his journey. Anything else before we get into Stormlight stuff?
Nope, that's all I had.
Paul?
Nope, I agree.
All right. Real quick. So Stormlight stuff now. Just a real quick side note, and then I'll get into our Stormlight refresher that we're going to be starting today. I am really looking forward to learning more about Kandra and refreshing myself more about Kandra, because I'm fairly confident this is a Stormlight 5 prediction that we're going to have a Kandra in Stormlight 5. And so learning the ins and outs of how they treat the contract and how you can have a Kandra on your side or manipulated Kandra and the rules to them. I'm really looking forward to relearning those things in preparation for Stormlight 5 because I think it's going to be relevant. But
I do as well. I think that's a great point that I hadn't. We briefly mentioned something like that, but now you're bringing it back to my mind, which I now need to add that to what I'm looking for as well, because where we left our heroes in Stormlight, they're dealing with a contract with Odium.
right.
And so bringing in an expert on contracts, whether they show up on either, like whichever side they show up on, likelihood of Kandra getting involved seems high.
Yeah. Okay. A little bit of formatting, gentlemen. In preparation for Stormlight 5, I will not have time to reread the books. Paul, you said that you were going to. I hope you enjoy that. What, are you going to audiobook them or are you going to read them?
Yes, yeah, I will be audiobooking them.
Okay. So in preparation for that, or in preparation for Stormlight 5, at the end of each episode, all I want to do is a quick, less than 5 minutes, little teaser trivia for you guys. And just, we're going to quick rapid fire. I don't want you to take too much time, like, thinking about it. Either you know the answer or you don't. Okay? So, there's going to be 4 questions for a total of 5 points. And each week we're going to start with one of the questions is 2 points.
Okay.
And
I was supposed to say, wait, are they all worth 1.25
1.25 points? Yes. No.
Okay.
It'll make sense in a second. I have it in front of me. I'm going to do my best
Gotcha.
to explain this. We're going to start with one of you 1 week, and then we're going to switch off to the other one the next week. So one of you will get to lead in this week, and then the other one will get to lead in the second week. There are pros and cons to going first or going second on different questions. Okay? So you'll get an advantage or a disadvantage on each week. We're going to start with Eliot. 4 questions. The first one is going to be, I'm going to give you the name of a chapter. You have to give me a rough explanation of what happened in that chapter. Okay? Number 2 is going to be our classic quote ID that we were doing last year. I will give you a quote. All you have to do is tell me who's talking. That's all. Just tell me who's talking. And that'll lead into like guesses of, if you're going second, maybe that was a good thing that you went second because they said that what you were going to guess, and I'll tell them no. So, third one, I am going to read a review of a Cosmere book that you have read. You are going to tell me what they rated the book out of 5 and what book they're talking about. So that's 3 and 4. You're going to tell me what they rated it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and what book they're talking about. 5th is a trivia question. A good old fashioned, I'm going to ask you a trivia question. So that'll be like the tiebreaker. If we get to a 5th question, I'm just going to ask you a straight up trivia question. So, Eliot, you're going to go first.
All right.
And we're going to keep a tally of who won the week. So if you get 3 out of 5, then you get 1 point. And we'll carry that through to next week, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, Eliot, this goes to you first. I'm going to give you a chapter name. You have to tell me a rough estimate, a brief description, and it'll be up to me whether I accept it or not, of what happened in the chapter. The chapter title is 3 Glyphs.
3 glyphs. Chapter titles. I don't read those. 3 glyphs. Well,
Give it your best shot.
So Yasna has conversations with Shalon about research that she's doing, and she can't find what she's looking for. And Shalon has questions, but Yasna's not really giving the answers. Yeah, I have no idea.
Incorrect. Paul, go ahead.
Okay. My best guess is Navani is doing her prayer glyphs, and I think my best guess is that this is the chapter where Navani's doing her like prayer glyphs, and I think maybe Shalon or Renarin comes and asks about them, like, oh, why do you do this? And she explains and shares a little bit of insight into it, and this is why I do it, and the listener is like, oh no, that's kind of dumb, but then it makes a good point about like, oh well, it brings hope to her, so therefore it's a good thing.
Okay, incorrect. The
I
intention
said it confidently though.
The intention of this quiz is to refresh ourselves on what actually happened in Stormlight, but I'm quickly realizing that we might just be gaslighting ourselves into talking to ourselves about things that never actually happened, like Paul just did.
Absolutely.
He was so confident about some scene that never happened. Okay. 3 glyphs for you, for your refresher, gentlemen. It is the chapter where Kaladin straps old Parshendi bones to his shield and runs out in front of Bridge 4 to distract from the arrows and save on a bridge run. Chapter 62 of The Way of Kings. All right.
Never would have gotten there.
Paul.
Nope, not even close.
Paul.
All right.
Question 2. Here's your quote ID. All you have to tell me is who's talking.
Okay.
See that those people don't trample each other in their haste to get to safety, and keep the rest of the guards from attacking them. This isn't a revolt. Can't you hear the thunder and feel the wind picking up?
Just to be sure, we're just talking about Stormlight, or is this any Cosmere?
Any Cosmere is possible, but it is heavily weighted to Stormlight.
Okay.
I won't put other Cosmere off the board.
I feel really closely between two guesses. I'm actually going to go with Adolin.
Incorrect.
So is it over
Is
to
my guess?
Eliot?
Yep, it's over to Elliot.
Okay.
I'm bouncing back and forth from a bunch of scenes. I'm not super confident on this. I almost want to go a little out of the box and go like Elokar. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when.
Final answer?
Sure.
Incorrect. The answer is Kaladin trying to get the Alethi farmers in from the High Storm at the beginning of Oathbringer. He's trying to convince Parshman to let the humans in the barn as the High Storm's coming.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I thought this was Way of Kings. I thought this was when they realize they've been betrayed. And I specifically thought this wasn't Kaladin because I thought the little comment of the wind is picking up. I thought that was going to be some neat little rereader illusion that Kaladin is sort of controlling the winds and doing his whole initial lashings thing. So my two guesses were Adolin and or Dalinar because I thought was the scene, but I was like, I don't think it's Dalinar. Anyways, that's all.
All right. Back to Elliot for question 3 and 4. I'm going to read you both a review of a Cosmere book that you have read. It like I said, any book is on the table that you've read, but it's heavily weighted to Stormlight. We're here for Stormlight refreshers. This is on Goodreads. I have waited too long to write the review that I don't even feel like describing it. I will say that it was a bloated read, full of repetitive self-loathing, self-condemnation, self-recriminations, and other self-stuff from the dictionary. The characters took forever to grow. I mean, they didn't grow/change until the last 100 or so pages. This is ridiculous. They were not interesting enough to carry the story for that long. I kept wishing and hoping that something great would happen. It's as simple as that. It never did. World building? Not nearly enough to give praise. I already own the next book, unfortunately. I'm in no rush to read it. Disappointed.
So it can't be Oathbringer, because the center launch of Oathbringer surely does not fail to at least grab somebody's interest or make them feel the book was worth it. Can't be Rhythm of War, because there's a hint in there about owning the next one.
Okay.
There's got to be, I guess I'm giving Paul the hints here, aren't I? Words of Radiance.
Okay.
It's got to be Words of Radiance. And which is still baffling, how they didn't think the end of that book was. Words of Radiance, they gave it 2 stars out of 5. 2 out of 5?
Out of 5.
2 out of 5.
All right, Paul?
Okay, so one clarifying question I want to ask. It started the beginning of the review saying he waited too long. Was it too long to read this or too long to write this?
I've waited too long to write this review that I don't even feel like describing it.
And he says the development doesn't happen until the last 100 pages.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to talk myself through this a little bit since Elliot's already made his guesses. So I desperately want to say the Well of Ascension. That's what I desperately want to say.
Okay.
But I know this is heavily weighted towards Stormlight, but it doesn't mean it's Stormlight.
Correct.
I'm my final answer and my other thought is that this is the Way of Kings.
Okay.
Actually, this is a review of the Way of Kings. And he gave it a really negative feedback, but I'm gonna say that it's maybe not quite that bad. I'm gonna go 3 out of 5. The Way of Kings and 3 out of 5.
All right.
Because if he brought the next book, he's at least somewhat confident, right? Whoever wrote this. Okay, anyways.
The correct answer is The Way of Kings for 2 out of 5 stars. So both of you have a point.
Okay.
Moving into our fifth question and last one. We have been told of 5 different wielders of Oathbringer, the sword, since the start of the Stormlight Archive. Name them. This goes to Paul first.
Okay, so 5 different wielders for Oathbringer, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Gonna start with Dalinar.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, but for this question, if you say someone who was not correct, that disqualifies your answer and you are incorrect.
Okay. So, okay. The thing is, I don't know if I can say the exact name. I believe
You can describe them.
the term was like the Sunmaker,
Okay.
Sunbringer. So I'm pretty sure it was Sunmaker. That's what I would rest on, but not 100% sure. But it's like who Dalinar references way back in the past to like the Sunmaker
Okay.
as like an original Oathbringer person. I'm gonna say Sunmaker, Dalinar. Oh gosh. Okay, you said there's 5. There's been 5 wielders of Oathbringer. Gosh. Okay. Does this may get me out right away. I'm gonna say Thaddeus, because doesn't Dalinar give Thaddeus this Oathbringer?
Okay.
Okay. Not out yet. Okay.
I wouldn't tell you if you were.
Okay.
I would let you
Okay,
get
but
5 first.
I have to say 5 names. Oh, okay, dang. Okay, I was taking that as a good
You can
sign.
stop whenever you want, but there are 5.
Okay, so okay. I want to throw one more name out there. And it's like if any one of them are wrong, I'm like, I mean, I'm not, I know I don't know 5. So maybe I should stop there. I'm not sure. I feel confident in the 3 I've said so far. I mean, going off of initial judgments, I should just stop at those 3. I can't think of another. Maybe. Oh, man, this is probably all wrong. I'm gonna say Gavilar. I think that's wrong, but I'm gonna add that as a 4th name and stop there. I can't think of anyone else.
Okay, so you said Dalinar, the Sunmaker, Thaddeus, and Gavilar were your 4.
Yes.
And you're stopping
Yes.
at 4. Okay, throwing to you, Eliot.
I can't think of anyone. Okay.
How long do they have to hold it to count as a wielder?
Seconds. A second.
Okay. Dalinar Thaddeus, for sure. I agree with Paul about this Sunmaker character. I remember there being the talk about the origin. I'm not sure if that name is correct, so I'm going to avoid it so I don't disqualify my answer here. So I'm going to take that one off, even though I do think that person, whatever their actual name is, was a wielder. And then I'm going to add Elend to this list. Dalinar Thaddeus, Elend. There's another, I want to say it's Paladin. I feel like there's a time in Rhythm of War where he like holds it or is wielding it or whatever, but I'm not sure about that one, so I'm going to take it off as well. So final answer, Dalinar, Thaddeus, Elend.
Okay. Paul, Gavilar never held Oathbringer, so you are disqualified. Eliot,
Rest in peace.
I don't have Adolin down, but I believe you're correct. In Rhythm of War, I believe Oathbringer... Well, actually, no. In Words of Radiance, he assassinates Thaddeus, Oathbringer appears next to him, and he hides it. I believe you're correct.
That's my thought. That's my thinking.
I'm going to give it to you. That both of those are correct. Or that all 3 of those are correct. The Sunmaker was correct. And...
Was that the correct name, too?
Yes, his
like,
real name is...
for him?
His real name is Sadie, or Sade. Thaddeus is named after him. Sade the Sunmaker. I would have accepted either one of those.
Okay.
Tanelon's father is who Dalinar wins the blade from in the Rift. And you could have actually
yes.
You could have actually said Tanelon as well, because he's the boy who picks up the blade to defend against Dalinar for like a split second.
Huh.
Thaddeus and Amaram is on this list as well. Amaram uses Oathbringer in the battle at the end of Oathbringer the book. He dual wields shard blades against Kaladin.
I toyed with Amaram for a second, but couldn't remember the
I did
exact
too.
situation. Man, Oathbringer's been around the block.
I actually thought of Amaram pretty early, but I will say my reasoning was completely off. I thought there was a point like when Shallan sees that Amaram has her brother's Shardblade. I thought there was somewhere in there that somehow Amaram had Oathbringer for a second too. But that is incorrect, so okay. I'm proud of the Sunmaker at least.
Yeah, you should be.
When claim to fame here.
All right. So going into next week, we are 1-0 to Eliot as he got that final question correct.
Whole 2 points.
With the yes, but the weekly points don't matter. It's just the cumulative points.
Okay.
So 1-0 to Eliot, and I hope you enjoyed your Stormlight refresher. We'll be doing some of these quickly at the end of each episode. Anything else, gentlemen?
That's all. Excited to read more.
That was a ton of fun. Looking forward to next time. Absolutely.